Welcome to the Sunday morning sit down show. And today you got all of us here. We're here to
It's
talk NFL. We're here to talk fantasy. Before we get into that, we had the last UFC card of the year, UFC 296. And still, Roland has it here. And still, the champions retain. Roland, what'd you think of the card? UFC 296 is coming on. What do you think?
hey, the fights maybe weren't necessarily the best, but this UFC card had a little bit of everything from the build up. There's some good action inside the octagon, and we even had some action outside of the
Yeah,
octagon with Sean Strickland, and Dries Duplessis or whatever his Dricus, excuse me.
Dricus
So
Duplessis.
a lot of drama. I'm glad to see the Ant Stills held their titles. So yeah, it was a good weekend of fights for sure.
Ben, what'd you think of these fights, man?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty bad night of fights, bro. I was really hyped. It was the last card of the year, and the fights just really didn't live up to the hype. I know there was a lot of finishes in the prelims, but then leading into the main card, it kind of, stalled out a bit. A lot of these fights weren't as exciting as we thought they were going to be. The, main event was an all-time snoozer. But yeah, I was not very pleased with it.
I gotta ask you, especially because you love Tony Ferguson. You've seen it now. What do you want from him next?
Yeah, fucking run it back, bro. Run it back. There was a little bit of life. I think that they're probably going to let him go out on a win or just fight like a complete bum to actually get a win. I didn't listen to the post fight.
I don't know if they can find a bum for Tony to fight
They
anymore.
can.
No, they
Can.
can't. I think they're past that point. But go
I mean,
ahead.
if the lowest opponent that he's fought is Paddy Pimblett, it's still somebody that the UFC has very high hopes for. Let's give him, somebody that he can take. But I didn't hear Dana after the event. I know usually when he wants somebody to retire, he doesn't shy away from just flat out saying it. So
He wants him to retire.
okay, well, it's not looking good, boys.
Yeah, I think there's that legacy fight out there. I think the Nick Diaz fight makes sense. Those guys don't have a lot of power behind their punches anymore, and I think that could be competitive. I would like to see something like that. I
That'd
don't
be
want to
good.
see him in BKFC. That's for sure. I don't want to see him go
No,
down that
no,
route
no. We don't want to see him
because it'll
die.
get
Tony,
dangerous.
please,
So I
no.
hope it's the end of the road for Tony or one last legacy fight.
That
Ron,
Nick,
I know you like the UFC. You saw it last night. What was the highlight for you?
There really wasn't any, man. To be honest, I mean, we were having a friendsmas at the time, and I was watching it on my phone because the fights weren't that good. I put it on the big screen for the main event, hoping that it would take attention and everybody would watch the fight and have a good time and get rowdy, and it just didn't hit. It totally missed for me.
Mhm.
I think it's bad for the fans who want to maybe start buying it and not streaming it anymore. But it's something like that. It just makes you want to keep just streaming, man. It was a snoozer, like Ben said.
Got you. All right, well, let's move along, though, guys. What we got next?
all right. Well, let's get into it. There was some games that happened this past weekend already. We had 3 Saturday games. The last game was Lions and Broncos. Lions took care of business there. Then we had the first game of the slate, which was the Cincinnati and Minnesota game. That game was fairly exciting.
Yeah.
Both backup quarterbacks. Nick Mullins looked like he came to play early on. Got the Vikings out to an early lead. Ended up in overtime. And then Indy and Pittsburgh, they met, and Indy took care of business 30-13. Things not getting better for Pittsburgh there. Anything to note on the Saturday games for you guys before we get into these injuries as we creep closer to kickoff here?
The Bengals are still for real for me. They were down 17-3. They come all the way back. Their backup quarterback, did whatever he did. I think he threw up like 18 fantasy points, and their offense is still strong, and it's still able to make that playoff push even without Joe Burrow. So it's exciting to see. It's a good storyline. For the NFL, it's bad because you have these owners and these quarterbacks, making all these contracts and getting all this money, and then they're not even on the field, and your backup quarterback is still, leading you into a wild card, if not playoff contention. So I think it was cool. It's cool to see underdog stories like that. And for football on a Saturday, it was a little weird to me because I'm off on Sundays, so I enjoy all my football on Sundays. So I was at work while this game was going on. You usually see a Saturday night game at 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock. But when you start a Saturday game at 12, it's like, damn, a lot of people are still busy. So shame on the NFL, from me personally, but I'll take a little bit of NFL on Saturday. Saturday night.
I don't mind the Saturday starts, but good call out on that Bengals story, because definitely looked like they were dead in the water when Joe Burrow went down with that injury. But Jake Browning definitely giving them some life. Ben, anything for you in those Saturday games that you want to touch on real quick?
Yeah, I mean, fantasy football playoffs week 1 started for me. It was the night game. Sam Laporta is, Sam Laporta is elite, and Jared Goff had to stream him with Stroud out, put him in. His name to me now is Jared Goff. I'm dropping the Goff. It's last name God. He put up 48 points, 5 touchdowns. That's insane for Jared Goff in the first week of the playoffs. Luckily, they were playing indoors, but man, that Lions stack yesterday went crazy. If you had any Lions fantasy football players, everybody.
Gibbs went off. Amon-Ra St. Brown for 112 yards.
Everybody.
Everything.
Definitely already 4 games in tow. So for fantasy, if you've had any of those players throughout those 4 games, that's 8 teams. So hopefully it's gone in your favor. Some big performances have happened. Even Thursday night, Raiders defense put up 25 to 30 points, depending on the scoring in your
Zamir
leagues.
White.
O'Connell went off. Zamir White went off. There were a couple good pickups. Even Jacoby
Palmer went
Myers and Devontae Adams, both 8. So a lot of good performances already. We're going to talk you through the performances that haven't happened already here on Sunday. But first, before we get to that, we're going to talk about some guys that aren't going to play, some guys who are questionable, and some guys who it's not looking good for. So the 4 guys that are pictured here, the 2 teammates on the left, Nico Collins and CJ Stroud, taking the league by storm this year, both out, calf and concussion respectively. And then Tyreek Hill, the best fantasy player, the best player in the league pretty much this year, he's out. He was going to give it a go. The coaches said we're going to let Tyreek Hill make the decision on game day. Good thing it didn't creep any closer to 11. So if you got the news already, you're able to make the decision in your lineup. He's out. And then Aaron Jones, he's going to give it a go. He's been out the past couple of weeks. They got a good matchup against the Bucs. The Bucs do give it up. They're a run funnel defense. Do want you to run it on them. Other notables here, A-Chain going to give it a go. Stevenson, he's out. You saw that hip drop last week. Olave, doubtful, but he's, I think, more than likely not going to play based on what I've been seeing. Taylor out again. Going to skip some names because they've been out a few weeks. And then Brian Robinson, he's out. So look for Antonio Gibson, Rodriguez to get a bump. And then the 2 Monday night quarterbacks, you got Geno Smith, Jalen Hurts, both questionable. Going to leave it here with you guys on this Jalen Hurts stuff, getting a little weird. He got sick on Thursday. Friday was still sick. They said they were going to call him questionable. The news comes out today that he traveled separately with the team with hopes of playing. He's harboring hopes of playing. So I'm just going to leave it to you guys there, because the guys that we talked about pretty much definitive, they're not going to play. They are going to play. What do you do if you have Jalen Hurts? You're in the playoffs. A lot of quarterbacks have already either been picked up or have already played in terms of the streaming options. You probably haven't been planning for Jalen Hurts not to play, because he always plays. He doesn't miss. Ben, what are your thoughts here? What are you doing with Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, and especially with all the talk that there's been this week, Roland, of the Eagles having meetings about more efficiency from Jalen Hurts and whatnot. There's been a lot of turmoil around Philly. These past few weeks they've had some. We talked about how tough their stretch has been. They're finally getting some losses on their record. They lost to the Cowboys last week. I think that there's too much going on. If it is a sickness, if it was that bad, I don't know that they would even let him travel separately. So personally, I think that right now with all the noise and everything, I think that Hurts will end up playing in the playoffs. I don't know if you want to risk it. I was about to look up who their backup quarterback is.
Marcus Mariota.
I didn't know it off the top of my head, but I mean, I don't know if that's the worst start either. We know that the Eagles have the weapons. They have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith. Goddard is there. They have a lot of weapons. So I would just honestly write it out with Hurts. I would pick up Mariota, and that's where I would pivot, because at this point it's too last minute. I doubt that there's anything with much substance out there in the free agent market.
Glad you mentioned that. I agree with you. I think that's a play. You got to write it out. Pick up Hurts, because the other thing that the options that you run is like, do you pick up Tommy DeVito, bench Hurts, and then Hurts plays, and then you start Tommy DeVito. I mean, you don't want to be in that situation. Justin,
Rather start Mariota.
Yeah, rather wait and go Mariota. Justin, Ron, what are you doing with Hurts in this situation?
I think Ben gave the best solution. My initial thought was you don't risk it. You're in the playoffs. Pick up somebody else or start your backup. But, Mariota's going to be available in all these leagues pretty much. So you could put him in, pick him up, and just wait till Monday night to find out who you're going to play. Because if Hurts is active, you definitely want Hurts in. But if he's not, you can put Mariota in. So I think Ben gave the best solution at that point. My initial was pick up somebody else, start them today. Do not worry, do not wait. It's the playoffs. But I think that's actually a better solution, man. I think Mariota's decent enough. He got to the legs. He can move the ball.
The other good thing is it's an illness. Like, it's not some sort of injury to his body to where maybe he can get out mid-game. So if he plays, he's probably going to finish the game if he does.
That's one way to attack it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Who are they playing on Monday?
They're playing
Seahawks.
Seattle.
Right? I mean, that's still a defense that Marcus Mariota can do decent enough against. I don't think that the Eagles are going to sit him regardless. I think that they need wins. They know that the Cowboys are there on their heels, and they haven't looked very well on the offensive side of the ball. So to go to Marcus Mariota, you're kind of hurting yourself on top of already having struggles. So I think you do whatever you can to have him on the field. If it's kind of a COVID thing and they don't want to say, we saw the situation with Micah Parsons last week where he got kind of sick, and then you see him on the sideline, huffing that oxygen. So I think it's, like Ben said, more of an illness, not an injury. So I think not 100% flu game. That term always comes to mind. I think he'll be in the starting lineup, so I don't think you have to worry.
And a comment here, do want to ask you guys before we move on to some other players. Ryan here. So what you guys are saying is it's a good idea in terms of gamesmanship to go ahead if you're playing a Hurts owner to try and pick up Mariota before they do. Because there you go. Yeah,
if you have the bench spot, you do this.
Yeah, for sure. You got to. It's not one of those things like in the regular season where it doesn't really matter. It's the playoffs. You got to make a move like that. So good call out, Ryan. Other names here, obviously Tyreek Hill. You're gonna have to find a replacement for him today. Hopefully, you have some options. There's a lot of injuries out there. Ben, are there any names that come to mind? Like, I know you guys talked about McKinnon. We'll talk about him a little bit later. There's Lockett's in the world. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. Antonio Gibson just became a starter. Other names you guys looking at for Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, I really haven't thought about that one too much. To be honest with you, it's just like I said, on your rosters, you should have some pretty decent receiver depth, unless you're really hurt, from injuries. But even on that Miami team, I mean, now Waddle's the main target. I really don't like any of the other receivers if you're trying to pivot with another Miami receiver, especially with the matchup against the Jets. So if you do have Tyreek out, I mean, it is a tough one, but it's just next best available on your bench that you plug in there for him.
Yeah. Next best available on your bench. And if you're really desperate, like you said, with some injuries, there's still some names. Dontavian Wicks has had an uptick in performance. I mean, he not really the past 2 weeks, but Zay Jones, Curtis Samuel, maybe, but hopefully you have some better options on your bench, because that's probably the Jalen Hurts and Tyreek Hill, probably the biggest news so far of the fantasy day.
I do want to talk about the last guy there, Roland, Aaron Jones. I kind of want to ask you all if you all are comfortable enough. I know Ryan alluded to it in the comments, AJ Dillon out with Aaron Jones in. Are you all comfortable with just going in there and plugging Aaron Jones into the starting lineup, or are you kind of wanting to wait and see because it is the playoffs?
It's all situational based for me. If you've been laboring at the running back position and you need Aaron Jones to come in and be that RB1 or that RB2 that you've been missing, like, it just depends on how big of the drop off is between Aaron Jones and your next option, right? But I love the matchup. I think this is a good matchup for the running backs for the Packers. If Aaron Jones is a full go, I like him to get into the end zone. I think he scores today against the Bucs.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think he's automatically into your lineup. If he's been on your lineup, you've had him on the bench just waiting for him to go in. So I don't see why you would keep him on the bench now that he's healthy and AJ Dillon being out. I mean, all you need is a solid, 12 points. That's a touchdown and, maybe a couple catches. So I think that he's a automatic start, bro.
Would you all feel safer playing him or Raheem Mostert with A-Chain in this week?
I think
Mostert.
Mostert gets it done regardless, bro.
Mostert's almost a touchdown
Yeah.
a game at this point.
Yeah.
Yup.
And it's a different offense, too, at this point as well. So, yeah, I'd go Mostert over Aaron Jones. But, like, if you're like Ryan, it's either Aaron Jones or Kareem Hunt. You go Aaron Jones 7 days out of the
100%.
week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you there, Ryan. And good question, Ben. Before we wrap up, anything else here on this this fantasy injury report? You guys fully comfortable with A-Chain starting him? I know you just mentioned his counterpart in the backfield, Mostert. You're comfortable with either guy today?
You
I'm
got to
not
think
as
that
comfortable
with
just
Tyreek
because
out,
it's the Jets.
with Tyreek out though, Justin, you got to think that they try and get a little creative and have A-Chain fill in some of those,
Yeah, but-
motion, quick passes and whatnot.
I think what we saw on Monday night against the Titans didn't look that great, and I think the Jets defense is way better than the Titans defense. So I am worried about moving the Dolphins today. I feel like that could be troublesome this week. I think
Actually,
Tyreek Hill is, Tua's a little bit of a merchant for him, and I think without him, that offense kind of closes up a little bit more.
I think because it's the Jets, you might see a little bit more from A-Chain than you do Mostert. Mostert's a little bit more of a conventional back. He doesn't have all, the little quickness and pass catching ability that a guy like A-Chain, who's a little bit more shifty, can
I
get 2
think
yards after the catch.
I disagree hard on
You
that.
think
I think
opposite?
Mostert's
See,
one
I
of the
would rather run
fastest guys in the
I would
NFL.
rather run A-Chain against the Jets because he's just a little bit,
Yeah.
he has, I don't
The-
know how to
the-
describe it, but I think Mostert's a little bit more conventional, and and Jets front seven can stop a guy like Mostert opposed to stopping a guy like A-Chain.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah, I see where both of you guys coming from. The difference for me, and I'm comfortable with both of them. But like, if I'm like picking like anytime touchdown, we'll get to it later. I like the guy who gets the goal line stuff, and so far that's been Mostert. At least last game, it was like 6-1 inside the 5 in favor of Mostert. A little concerning for A-Chain, but the volume is still there nonetheless for both guys, and no Hill. So both guys a go. Just wanted to see y'all's comfort level there. All right, let's move on. Flex of the week. 2 receivers to talk about. Ron, I'll let you go in depth into your boy right now, but let me just go real quick and say I love Rashee Rice. We've been talking about him for a little while now on the show, either as a flex of the week or I think we might have mentioned to pick him up a couple of weeks ago too before the cat got out of the bag on his name. But Rashee Rice, I have him up here. I think it's a good matchup against the Patriots. He's become an every down player. That was kind of the thing with him. He was still splitting snaps with the MVSs of the world, but the last 2 games, he's really come into a full-time role. I like Rashee Rice as a go forward. I think he's the number 1 guy in Kansas City. Depending on your lineups, he's more than likely that flex wide receiver 2 range, but I think he's an everyday starter in your fantasy lineup going forward. So I like Rashee Rice this week and going forward. But that was my little take on him. Anything on Rashee Rice before we get into OBJ?
No, I just think that he's become, they're obviously struggling for receivers. He's clearly their best receiver, aside from Travis Kelce, who's their tight end. So, yeah, he's definitely found his spot. And I think it's a guy that next year will be drafted like in the mid rounds as, maybe a wide receiver 2 or a flex, because he does seem like their staple at wide receiver.
Yep. All right. And so the other guy here on the list is Odell Beckham. Hey, it's been a long journey for him, a lot of injuries, couple different teams here and there, but he's found himself as a flex of the week in the playoffs. And this isn't, hey, this is a thing. Odell Beckham has become a thing in Baltimore. Ron, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. I think, can you go to the one just
Yeah,
so I have
I got
those
you.
points on him? Yeah, man. See, this is a slide from Tuesday. Me and Ben had covered this, and our Tuesday guys have gone off. We mentioned Gardner Minshew. He threw up 20. Jake Browning threw up 18. Ty Chandler threw up 24. So hopefully we can go 4 for 4 from their waiver show. If you guys want to watch on Tuesdays, we do a waiver show. But anyway, 19 points last week. He has a high snap count at Jacksonville, who has a terrible secondary, and he has a lot of downfield big play capability. For me, guys, it's the targets here, boys.
Yep.
10 targets last week, 7 targets against Cincinnati, 5 against the Chargers. It's not just that he has that big play ability, but Lamar Jackson is actually looking for Odell. It's not like first, second read, and then Odell's open there in the slot. It's like, where's Odell? Where's Odell? I need to force this guy to rock. I need to get him the rock. And that's kind of where we're at. Roland mentioned it. Here we are talking about Odell Beckham in your fantasy playoffs. And I think it's cool, for him. He's had a lot of, mishaps and injuries. I'm down to see Odell Beckham right into the playoffs and win you a fantasy championship. I think he's the flex of the week. Louis says that he has both OBJ and Rice on my fantasy roster. He's been starting both lately. So 2 guys, bro, who I don't assume got drafted very high. And it's cool to see this late in your playoff run and to root for, those wide receiver 3s who become wide receiver fantasy 1s at the end of the year.
Yeah, and those are league winners at the end of the day. And so if you have OBJ, that's a lot of value on him. And, I just want to, add on to what Ron said too. I think he's clearly the best guy other than, I think Zay Flowers is the receiver of the future, right? He has a lot of juice, but OBJ in terms of skill, he is that guy on the team. And, you had Rashad Bateman get healthy. You have Zay Flowers who's still there. Isaiah Likely's an option.
Last week. Yeah.
He's an option. So I'm saying all this to say that there's options and it allows OBJ to flourish a little bit more. And he doesn't have to worry about double coverage and things like that he's seen throughout his career or in other places where he's been a single option. So I like OBJ a lot. I agree with this, Ron.
I'm with Ron on this. 10 targets last week, 4 catches. Some of those that he didn't come up with, he got, personal fouled on. So the targets are there. He's open. He's a technician when he's running the routes. He's getting wide open for Lamar, which makes it easier for him. 100% with Ron on this one. I like this play a lot.
Ben, are you jumping on the train with us with OBJ here, or are you going to have to pump the brakes a little bit for us?
I'm not necessarily pumping the brakes. I like the play. I do like Zay Flowers more this week than I like OBJ. I mean, OBJ went off last week. Zay Flowers also went off. He had himself a 20-point game as well. I think that they're both good options. Definitely both flex starts. Maybe Zay Jones, you're plugging in at wide receiver 2, but yeah, it seems since Andrews went down, I mean, Likely isn't commanding, 7 to 10 targets a game. So that's where it seems like that share went to OBJ because since Andrews went down, he's definitely been implemented a lot more. So I'm okay with starting both guys. I do like Zay Flowers more.
All right. So we got 2 flexes of the week: Rashee Rice, OBJ. Rashee Rice playing the Patriots. Go back to that slide one more time just for the matchups. Going up against the Patriots, and Odell Beckham going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, whose defense has really taken a turn for the worse the past couple of weeks. Both of these defenses have gone down a little bit.
The Ravens' run game has also taken a dip, right? Like Gus Edwards was pretty good. That Mitchell kid. Run game has really disappeared, and it's forcing Lamar to throw a lot more. So that's also why these guys have flourished a lot.
Yep.
All right. So hopefully these guys are in your fantasy lineups or at least options for you guys to consider. If you have any questions, please do shoot them in the chat. It's getting close to 11:30. So
we do have one from Howie there, Roland.
Yeah, there is a question?
Yeah.
All right. What's the question?
A running back question.
Tony Pollard, Kamara, Swift, and I got Jones. Who do I put at RB1 and RB2 and put on flex?
So got to start 3 out of those 4. Ron, who you got?
Just the way he listed them. Pollard, Kamara, and Swift are in my lineup, and then I'm chilling with Aaron Jones just because I like the matchup for the Eagles. With Jalen Hurts banged up, they could rely a little bit more on that run game, Noe. I'm going with the first 3.
Yeah, I'm going to go with it as ordered as well. I like Tony P, Kamara, and Swift. Tony P, such a frustrating week last week. Really could have had like a good 20-pointer, but got passed up in the red zone a few times. One of them in favor of Rico Dowdle. I like Swift a lot. He has not done good the past few weeks. I think he's been single digits the last 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is a good bounce back spot. So I got to agree with Ron. I think you got to keep it as ordered. Not going to bench Kamara either. So yeah.
I like the 3 out of the 4 that y'all chose. I'm gonna reorder them. I would probably put Kamara 1, then Swift 2, and Tony P at my flex. But those 3 are the right 3 to me out of those 4.
I'm gonna disagree. No, I'm gonna keep it from a consensus. Roland highlighted on Swift not being that good. We see the quarterback questions. That might mean loading the box a bit as well, which might help out Mariota. I actually like Aaron Jones in there instead of Swift. With Tony Pollard, as far as them playing the bat, it's likely going to be bad weather up in Buffalo outdoors. You would think that Tony Pollard probably gets, a couple more carries today. Usage goes up a bit. I would go Aaron Jones instead of Swift, but Pollard and Kamara are auto starts.
51 degrees in Buffalo today, sunny.
And Swift coming off 3-point game, 3-point game, and a 9-point game.
Yep. All right. Hopefully there's some bounce backs there, but Noe, you're in a good position either way, having all those guys. So
Yeah.
You're welcome,
good,
Noe.
That's a
good luck to you in your fantasy playoffs, sir.
good amount of backs there too.
Good little stable. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this was a pickup of the week that Ben and Ron noted. Jerick McKinnon. He was 36% owned at the time when they went over it. We noted him on Sunday also when the news of Pacheco was first announced of, hey, you might be able to load up McKinnon that week. He ended up getting into the end zone, got some red zone work. Already or noted here as well. He already is the PPR guy. So are you guys also comfortable with McKinnon in your lineups? Even though he is kind of sharing it with CEH, but we talked about it last time also when we brought up McKinnon at the very first time. CEH is not very good. So what do you guys think here about Jerick McKinnon?
Well, I think at this point, are we talking about picking him up now? Because he's probably rostered.
No,
at
just
way higher
just
rating
are
than
you?
Swift.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying at the time that it was noted.
Oh, at the time, it was
yeah, at the time he was 36. I'm just saying Ron had him up here because we did talk about him, and I also think he's a viable flex. So just
Yeah.
for conversational purposes, do you think Jerick McKinnon is flex worthy this week against the Patriots?
I think so. I think he's, has that ability to take one for a touchdown as far as, catching the ball outside the backfield. I don't think he's necessarily the guy that's going to run it through the tackles and get it done for you. But the ability to be the pass catcher out of the backfield is what makes him a viable flex option this week. At the time that this was posted, Ron, I think, does a show on Tuesdays. I think that was a perfect call at the time.
Yeah, this was just more like if you have, you are in that playoff run, but Jonathan Taylor went down for you. Pacheco went down for you. It's like, okay, what running back am I going to go grab? Obviously, Pacheco, you run him McKinnon because they're on the same team. But as of right now, in one of my leagues, I'm in the playoffs, and he's still available. So say you're in panic mode and you're like, hey, who can I plug in? Just go get Jerick McKinnon. He's still available in 36%, even till today, at least on my league. So I don't think that he's a bad play. Roland did kind of make a good point off camera. He's like, that Patriots defense. So they're for some reason, no matter who they play, they always seem to just be stout and not give up the big plays and not give up a lot of touchdowns. So that's the only thing that does worry me, but I think he's still a good plug-in. If you have some running back trouble, go look for Jerick McKinnon, see if he's available, and slot him in. He scored a touchdown on his very first game back. Maybe that's what the Chiefs needed, a little bit of change of pace. And you never know. Good luck if you start him.
Yeah, I think definitely PPR leagues, he is the guy to plug in between him and CEH. And it's a little surprising because he's not necessarily known for being a bruising runner, but it is also good to know that he is getting favor in the red zone in terms of those high value touches. So there's going to be some of those today against the Patriots, even though that is a decent defense. I think Kansas City should have some success as 10-point favorites. All right. These guys, all a threshold above probably than the dudes we just talked about. Going to go by them real quick because we are creeping up on 11:30. These are the must starts of the week. Threw up a quarterback in here. He was a guy that was maybe stream worthy the past few weeks, available on waivers for some guys. It's Matthew Stafford. I think he's got a good matchup against Washington. If you're in a pinch at quarterback, maybe you're a Jalen Hurts guy and you do have this option already. You're one of those guys that is fortunate enough to have a good backup option. I think Matthew Stafford is viable. We talked about CJ Stroud being hurt. I think he's also a good backup if you have that option there. Then the three other guys to the right, D-Hop going up against Houston, a reunion game, like him to score. Houston defense pretty injured, the team injured as a whole. And then we mentioned Swift. I put him up here. I think it's a good buy low. I think it's a good matchup against Seattle defense. Hopefully Jalen Hurts is able to play. I think that if he does play, obviously there's going to be more red zone opportunities for Swift to get into the end zone, which they have been willing to do a little bit more, not just all doing tush pushes, even though that is what they do most of the time. And then Gibson here. Gibson, hey, he's been much maligned. He's in the doghouse, out of the doghouse his whole career with Ron Rivera. He's the starter. He's not the starter with Brian Robinson, mostly not the starter this year. Finds himself in a good opportunity, good chance versus the Los Angeles Rams. Not expecting them to win the game. They're like 7-point underdogs, but I do think that script favors Antonio Gibson. Might find himself with maybe 5 to 6 catches, could get there just based on game script. I just went off on all these 4 guys. Do you guys have any general opinions on either of these dudes, or any guys that you want to mention that are not pictured?
I kind of want to hear from Ben and the Houston start here. We got D-Hop. Ben, you know the Texans a little better than the rest of us. They are injured. What do you expect from D-Hop against that secondary today?
I expect them to get shut down, bro. The person who isn't hurt is Derek Stingley Jr., and I think that that's going to be who's shadowing D-Hop. He's the best player on our defense. So, I mean, D-Hop did have a really good week last week. He had that like 50, 60-yard pass that they missed the offensive pass interference on. He's still not the best at separation baller, if the ball's in his catch radius, but I actually don't see him. I see him having, maybe 10 points at the most today. So I'm not looking for that big of a week from D-Hop. I do think that the Titans win, full disclosure, but I think Derrick Henry's going to eat today.
I just don't want to, get into an argument here, or a debate, but Garrett Wilson, 9 for 14, 108 last week. Broncos, Sutton, 277 and a touchdown. Ridley, 5 for 89 and a touchdown. Jamar Chase, 5 for 124 and a touchdown. Mike Evans, 4 for 87. This defense can be had. I'm not so worried about the secondary that Ben just noted. So I like D-Hop, but I do see the other side to it. Just saying, not a vaunted defense by any means in Houston.
That's good. I'm glad to see both sides of the field, see where where you land on. I like that. I like the Gibson pick here, Roland. As you noted, no Brian Robinson. So it makes sense. He's going to get the boatload of the carry, so you got to go with Gibson. I like that pick.
They did for sure rule out Pacheco. I know that I wasn't here for the McKinnon slide, but we've been talking about all these backup running backs getting the start. They've all had really good, outcomes. I do agree with you. I didn't give any take on McKinnon, but I like McKinnon a lot this week as well. The Chiefs against the Patriots. This is probably a get-right game for the Chiefs, and I see them scoring a couple of touchdowns, so I think McKinnon gets in as well today.
Ron, what were you going to say?
My favorite player off this list has to be Matt Stafford, man. Dropping 23 points in back-to-back weeks. It seems like Puka Nacua is back in the picture. You still have Cooper Kupp there. I think that Williams is going to have a nice little day for himself too. Might even be catching the ball, a little receiving touchdown for Williams. So I think a lot of his weapons are finally doing the work for Stafford to give him those numbers. 294, 279, and 229. He's had 10 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. This is a dude who you can put on your playoff roster too, and just ride you there. Unfortunately, I think it'd be tough, like Jalen Hurts or Matt Stafford. That could be a choice. I know he was the most picked up quarterback this week. Do you risk benching Jalen Hurts for him? But it's tough, man. It's tough.
Gotcha.
But definitely a lot of upside with Stafford.
I would go Stafford over Hurts. I think that's a pretty good option. Now we're not talking about the DeVitos of the world and even the Minshew's of the world. I think Stafford's, decent.
He's a proven commodity.
Like if they're both on your roster right now, who are you plugging in?
Stafford.
Yeah, I'd go Stafford.
And you gotta like the matchup against Washington as well, for sure. Yeah. All right, so Noe, you got a question on the spread. We're about to talk the spread right now with our best bets. We got some bets up here from myself, Ron, and Justin. Ben, if you have a pick or two, feel free to throw them up here. But I'll get through mine real quick. I got 3 plays and a teaser. Just went with the 3 straight plays as I've been doing. Got Chicago +3 going into Cleveland, going up against the Browns. We all know the Browns have a good story. You got Joe Flacco going, but the Bears, they've also had a pretty good story the past couple of weeks. You got a lot of guys there kind of playing for their job, if you will. They've got a lot of motivation on their side. That defense has been top 5 since probably like week 10, if you go back and look at the underlying analytics. So give me Chicago, give me the field goal. The last that I checked, though, it was probably +2.5. But when I put this up there, I was seeing +3, so that's what I went with. Philly, this might be a play that I'm going to have to take off, but if Jalen Hurts plays, I like it. It's a good bounce back spot. Philly -3.5. You're going to be going up against Seattle, kind of an injured bird, if you will, no pun intended. You got
out.
Geno Smith, who's potentially going to be out with that groin issue. And like I said, good bounce back spot. Philly knows they need the dub, and Seattle's defense really hasn't been stopping much. And then Tennessee -3. Me and Ron going to be on the same page here. I like them going up against Houston. With no CJ Stroud, no Nico Collins, no Tank Dell, a lot of injuries throughout that team. I like Tennessee just to get it done. Give me -3. I wouldn't do the hook though if that's out there. And then a 2-team 7-point teaser. Kansas City, Miami. You can probably get Miami down to Pick'em and KC. When I wrote this, it was -8, so I got them down to -1. Can probably still get them down to -3. Still better than doing a parlay on both these teams is really what it comes down to for me, and why I did the teaser instead of the parlay. So give me KC and Miami, 2-team 7-point teaser. Not too worried about Tyreek Hill. Still think they got some weapons, and don't think the Cougar Hunter is going to get it done in Miami, Zach Wilson. So give me Miami there.
All right, I love it. So I'm just going to follow up with the Tennessee -3 for all the reasons that you said, all the injuries. For Houston, it's a home game. I called it last week, man, in our group chat. I said Derrick Henry's going to have a vintage game and the Titans are going to win. The Titans won. He had 2 touchdowns, didn't have a lot of rushing yards. I think that the Levis to Hopkins connection might also be on this week. I know it's hit or miss, but I think it hits again this week. Give me Tennessee. And then my boys, +2, you're giving the highest scoring offense in the league 2 points at Buffalo, who we know is always giving up a lot of points. We're not worried about their offense, what Josh Allen can do, Cook, and that with the new offensive coordinator, he's doing a lot well. So the offense is starting to click for the Bills, but let's not forget how bad their defense is against the Cowboys, who I think that Andy Reid, that McCarthy can come in and put a decent game plan together enough to find those holes in the Bills defense and keep the Cowboys offense churning. I don't think it's a game where they're going to need, over 40 points because their defense is still strong enough to keep them in the game. So give me that Cowboys +2 and Tennessee -3. We'll go a little 2-piece today.
All right, I got the Jets +7. I don't think the Jets win, but I think they keep it close. I am of the belief that when Tyreek is out, Tua does shrink up, and that offense does shrink up a little bit. We've seen it time and time again. We saw it last week against the Titans, and we've seen it throughout the season when Tyreek is not in, the offense doesn't move as well. He really, gets that offense going. So I'm going to take the Jets +7. I'm going to continue with what I said last week. I'm going to start trusting Dak in December. Dallas +2. I think we win this game.
Nice. And key injury for Buffalo. I'm not going to go all the way and agree with Ron and say that their defense has been bad. I think it's been improving, but Micah Hyde is hurt. So key injury for the Bills. He got a stinger last week. Not going to be able to make it back. Ben, any thoughts on, or Ron, go ahead. What were you
I was going to say, let's keep the Dak MVP hopes alive, boys.
Yeah, big game. I have a slide at the end so we can get into all of all of it that has to do with the Dallas and Buffalo game, all the implications, even that MVP that Ron just noted. Ben, I see you looking down at your phone. You're cooking up some plays. Do you want me to move to the next play or the next play screen? Because I got some props to go through.
Just real quick, some
to your
spreads
slide,
that I like. Some spreads that I like real quick. I do like Tennessee -3 with y'all. Like I said, Davis Mills starting at quarterback for the Texans.
That's Case Keenum.
Okay. Same shit, but no Tank Dell, no Nico Collins. They're both subpar quarterbacks. I think Tennessee has kind of gotten it rolling a bit. They figured something out. A little late playoff push. I like that. I don't know why I'm backing Arthur Smith again. I'm taking the Falcons -2.5. Just straight fade of the Panthers. I mean, they look horrible. Not even Adam Thielen looks good anymore.
A lot of rain in that game.
Yeah, and you got to like the run game that the Falcons have if it is a lot of rain. And then lastly, I'm with Noe. I think that this is a get-right game for the Chiefs. So I do have the Chiefs winning by at least 10+ against the Patriots.
Okay, there we go. Noe, good call out on that Chiefs question, and Ben's backing you up there. So let's go. I do have some player props when giving out these anytime touchdowns. Last week we hit on Bijan. Going to keep it going with this train again. Bijan +110. A lot of rain. Carolina's been giving it up to the running back. I think they've given up a touchdown to the running back for like 6 or 7 straight games. Give me Bijan. He's starting to rise. They're starting to trust in him a little bit more. I like him to get in the end zone, especially at those odds. And then the other guy here, Raheem Mostert, anytime touchdown minus 126, minus 125, going up against the Jets. Do you think he's going to find the end zone? I noted it earlier when we were on the injury report news about A-Chain. Last game, I don't know if this is going to be every single game, but I do think it's going to err more on the side of Mostert more times than not in terms of inside the 5, inside the 10, near the goal line. Against the Titans last game, the carries were 6-1. And you saw he scored twice last week. I like him to at least get in once this week. And I do want to say a special shout out to Derrick Henry, because we were riding him the last few weeks. Ron noted it last week. No longer can you get him at minus 120 on these odds. He's back to like minus 250. So good a little 3 weeks of value on Derrick Henry there that we enjoyed. But yeah, these anytime touchdown props, having a lot of fun with them. You guys have any thoughts on these two or any other guys you'd like to get into the end zone?
I hope you get that Bijan again. Last week we did sweat a little bit.
We did.
Saw that Desmond Ridder pass at the goal line. That was complete ass. I mean, Bijan could have walked that in, and he just whiffed that pass. I think Bijan's going to get it done for you today, though. But, man, was it a sweat last week with that trash by Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, let's parlay these two and get some good little payout because I think they both come through for you.
And Ben, your thoughts here?
Same. I like the way that the Falcons are trying to use Bijan in different ways down near the red zone and down near the goal line, throwing him in motion in the backfield. Hopefully, Ridder can make the easy pass this week, but he's becoming, that consistent guy. We're no longer seeing those Tyler Algier games. It's been Bijan pretty consistently the last couple of weeks. I do like that one, and I'll add Aaron Jones. I know we said we think Aaron Jones might get in. I do like Aaron Jones this week, man. I really like Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones is plus 120 to get into the end zone. I like that.
There we go.
I thought it'd be a little bit higher with his first game back and all that, but
no, AJ Dillon. If they get inside the 5, you got to think it's going to be him.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think? It was like plus 150 or something?
I thought, maybe that or plus 160.
All right. So those were some anytime touchdown props. Ben gave us one of his own with Aaron Jones. I do like that. I didn't put him in. I had a parlay going. Might add him to one because if he's getting the full go, I do think he gets in as well. That Bucs defense does give it up to the running backs. All right, so last slide here. Just wanted to have it up here. We got about 15 minutes left till we set our lineups. Maybe spend 5 minutes talking about this. It is the Cowboys at Bills. Cowboys +2 going into Buffalo. Got some rainy weather. We all know the Bills back against the wall. They don't have any tiebreakers in their favor. They're really got to win. They got to win out really to have a good chance of making it, even though some things are going in their favor with some injuries. Then you got the Cowboys. Justin alluded to it. Dak in December. Is it really a thing? Is this something that we can trust? Are the Cowboys really here? Are they for real? I think this is another game. We talked about it last week with Philly. They had to prove themselves. This is another game where all eyes are going to be on this game. It's one of those standalone 3:00 games. Justin, I see you getting really serious here. You're on the Cowboys +2. Tell me, just go into it. Any angle you want to talk about, the Dak MVP, Cowboys still playing for the NFC East Championship. What are you looking for in this game?
I think it's going to be a tough game, but the back's against the wall for the Bills. It's going to be very tough. They're 7-6. Believe it or not, the Cincinnati Bengals are ahead of them in the playoff race right now, and they haven't had their quarterback for the majority of the season. So Josh Allen's going to eat. I think Diggs might get his too. I know he's not projected that high in fantasy today. I think he's only projected like 11 points. And previously, he's like around the 15, 14-point mark. So you're going to see probably a lot of Gabe Davis in that action as well. I think this is going to come down to the last possession, and I hope it's the Cowboys because if it is, the Cowboys will win the game.
So you think it's going to be a close game?
Absolutely.
You're with the spread here. +2 is going to be a close game.
I don't think it's a blowout by us. I think it's going to be a war. It's going to be very similar to what we saw with the Eagles, except I think we're going to get it done.
All right. And before I let you come over the top, to capitalize for us Cowboys fans, Ben, you've often been on the other side, although you do recognize when the Cowboys have been good. So I'll give you your props there, but give us your perspective here going into this game as a former Bills fan and, where you stand with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are obviously rolling. That's why when you open up, the betting website and you go look at the line and you see the Bills -2, it's kind of alarming, right? You think, why wouldn't – I know that it's on the road, but why wouldn't the Cowboys be favored? usually when it's like that and it's a fishy line, it's like that for a reason. We've seen it a lot in college football, where we think the wrong team's favored, and sure enough, they come out and get it done. We saw them get it done against the Chiefs in Kansas City. They know what's at stake. I do like a couple of things that they've changed in the offense, using James Cook in the passing game a lot more, and kind of moving the chains instead of always looking for the big plays. I think it's going to be a shootout. I'm going to go with the line and just go with the team that I don't think should be favored, but is favored for some strange reason. I think the Bills at home in an ultimate, desperation spot. It's also a big letdown game for the Cowboys coming off that Eagles, kind of monkey off your back win. So I'll go with the Bills in a close one, but it's a toss-up game. Flip a coin, man. This is one you kind of just want to enjoy.
For sure. That's why I don't have a bet in on this game yet, because I kind of just want to enjoy it. I'm a Cowboys fan. Ron, tell me why I should put a bet on the Cowboys.
You should put a bet on the Cowboys because Dak is not December Dak anymore, man. He's a different Dak. DD
Let's go.
DD is different Dak, all right? I was the number one hater on this guy early in the season.
Yeah.
I have been his career. I was like, Mississippi State, 5th round pick, never going to get it done. Hopefully I'm not jinxing. I'm knocking on wood because he's made me a believer. The biggest Cowboy fan in the world and the biggest Dak critic is me. And he's made me a believer this year. He's just more relaxed to me. Him and Andy Reid, I keep saying Andy Reid, him and McCarthy are getting they have a little vibe right now. Maybe Kellen Moore was that guy who was just creating this awkward tension. Now he's gone, not doing a damn thing for the Chargers. And let's not forget who the Bills were before that game against the Chiefs. I mean, Josh Allen's terrible. He's throwing picks. Stephon Diggs is pissed off at the world. The OC's gone. So they still have their trouble. Let's not forget, one game is not going to change their outlook on the entire season. Who's been more consistent? The Cowboys. Defense had a bad game against Seattle. I'll give you that. DK went off on them. But other than that, they're kind of this, bend, don't break. I don't think that they gave up the big plays today. You could see some frustration from Diggs not wanting to get the ball. I think the storyline is there for the more consistent team today. Josh Allen might get a little nervous. What does he do when he gets nervous? Throws picks. And guess what? Cowboys have Bland back there. Tony Pollard, I think, does well. Just like you guys said, I don't think he has a breakout game. I'm looking for a lot of tight end action today, especially from the Bills. I think that Kincaid is going to eat. I think that Knox is going to eat. I think that it's going to be Ferguson, the same for the Cowboys. A lot of center of the field play. It should be a good game, but I'm not going to go with you guys and say that it's going to be close. I think that the Bills are going to crumble, like I said that they have been. The Joe Kelly. The Jim Kelly is the Josh Allen, and Dak is ready, bro. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on the Dak train. Could it be that I have a Dak MVP ticket? That's probably what it is, right? But I'm going to go with the boys today. You're giving the better team, the higher scoring team, +2. I'll take it all day, baby.
I hope so, Ron. I hope so.
I love it. It's almost 11:50. I'll just give my take real quick. Ron, you've convinced me. I have a smile on my face at the end of that take. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Look, here's the thing. Again, I said it when I broke down the game. This is a spot where the Cowboys usually do fall a little flat, right? It's a high-profile game everybody's watching. Well, the fact of the matter is, I think it's a high-leverage game for both teams. I do agree with Ron. The Cowboys have been playing the more consistent football, and I think that's going to be what comes through today. This is supposed to be a spot for the Bills, but the Bills, everyone's been waiting for them to wake up. Like, where's this Bills team going to come out? Where's this championship team that we've been calling for these past 3 to 4 years that hasn't been able to get through and get over the hump? I don't think it's going to happen. They haven't been able to flip on that switch. I know they beat the Kansas City Chiefs last week, but we all know the Chiefs have been having a little bit of their struggles. So that's kind of why we expected the Chiefs to lose that game last week. But give me the Cowboys here. I'm not going to be on the other side and playing it safe or going with the side here, because I do agree with Ben. The line is a little fishy. You kind of expect that Vegas is kind of telling you something. Take the Bills here. But you know what? I'm hard-headed. I just heard Justin and Ron tell me why I should take the Cowboys.
Yes.
And I'm going to my boys. I'm not gonna come here on Tuesday with Justin and Ron, smiling, saying, "Hey guys, the Cowboys won and I took them." but I scrolled down to my phone after we got off the podcast and I took the Bills. Not going to let that happen. I'm going with the Cowboys today. Let's go, guys. We're getting it done.
And let's
All right.
not forget, the Bills were a loss away from Tony lining up offsides. Let's just be honest. That play was a tutty. If he's not offsides, Chiefs win, and we're talking a whole nother narrative today.
Well, I mean, there was still time left on the clock. It's not.
Yeah, but not that much.
It was over a minute, cuz.
Dang, Ben still got little bills in him, huh?
No, let's just keep it facts.
And I do agree, though.
Okay.
I think this is the MVP game. I think if Dak wins, he should be the odds-on favorite to win MVP. I think he's still there with Purdy. But if Dak wins this game, he should have the minus next to his name. He should be like minus 100 or
What's
minus
it lined at now?
150.
+1.
I thought it was in the
Short.
plus 300, him and Purdy, something like that. Or
That
maybe
I thought it was a little
before.
closer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that
Well,
was before last week.
I will say if the Bills win, I like Josh Allen's chances as a sneaky dark horse MVP. The numbers have been there. If they
Numbers are there.
win, the narrative will be there for the Bills, kind of creeping into that playoff race, and it's all because of Josh Allen. So if you want to, take the Bills, maybe don't take them to win the game. Sprinkle a little on Allen to win MVP. That might be a good little bet for you there.
Prescott +150.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, he should be minus 150, minus 200 if he wins today.
Purdy +185.
What's up,
Just
Ben?
in closing, Darren Waller did get ruled in for the Giants, so I know some people held on to him in that IR spot. Not a lot of really big threat options. We've seen guys like Isaiah Hodgins catching touchdowns for the Giants, so Darren Waller could be a little spark for that playoff push.
I have him on my
Yep.
IR. I need to bump him up.
11:51, boys. We're ready to bounce, so we can
Yeah,
put these
let's
last
get
That's
minute
it.
things in.
Yes, sir. Last
All right,
minute
that's
lineup
it.
changes.
Appreciate everybody watching, man. Go to our social media, like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate y'all. Good luck, and we'll see y'all next week.
Good luck.